Alright folks, welcome to this week's episode of The Cut. I'm Craig Shelton. This is UTN 43.8 and as you can see, I got a few friends in the house today. We talk sports on this show. We also interact with you on Facebook and on Twitter. We love to mix it up with the social media. I like to think of myself as a social media beast. That guy would probably call me a social media idiot. Nevertheless, I'll introduce my good friend Lyles, the creepiest college recruiter you will ever see in your life. This is Angelo, Lawford of HMW. Will is a part of HMW as well. That would be John Harris of Yahoo Radio 1560 The Game right here in Houston, Texas. That's Jerome Solomon, columnist with the Houston Chronicle and also radio host at ESPN 97.5, host of The Rush along with Dave Tepper. That guy is Big Richard Walker, and he is also a member of HMW. At various times during this show, you will see right here on the screen the Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds for each of these gentlemen, and we encourage you to connect with them on the social mediums. First of all, I'd like to say good evening to everybody. You guys are very, very welcome. Glad to see you here, and particularly to Jerome, because Jerome is kind of hard to get out the house. He rarely has an opinion. He's the type of guy that you can just say anything and he'll go along with it. Don't count on that. All right, the Texans got it done 27-13 in their first preseason game. We're going to talk with you. It's all about the Texans today. As you know, we've been bringing you a lot of things, a lot of video from Texas training camp. We've been doing various interviews with players, members of the Texans, members of the local media. You folks saw the great debate between those two ladies, Stephanie Stradley and Kim Davis, in their opinion in regard to Matt Sharp. Quarterback arguments are usually the best in sports. I mean, I can't think of a better argument when you talk about a position than the quarterback position. You never heard a great debate about the guy backing up Shaq or backing up Dream or backing up Wilt, the number 2 and the number 3 centers on a basketball team. But start talking football and start talking about the backup quarterback position, and all sorts of things start to show their ugly head. We will start with the ugliest head on this panel tonight because he simply disagrees with me, so imagine that. No, but I'm going to start with Jerome. It's Jerome's first time on the show. Before we started taping tonight, we were talking a lot about the first Texas preseason game and the play of one Case Keenum, a former quarterback at University of Houston, played under Kevin Sumlin, and Case has been doing well by terms of what a third-string quarterback you would want him to do progression-wise from one year to the next. Case is in his sophomore campaign with the Texans. But the incumbent backup for the Texans is T.J. Yates. He led the Texans to their first ever playoff win against Cincinnati after replacing Matt Sharp, who went out injured for the rest of the season. I'm one of those guys that feels like the Texans won in spite of T.J. Yates. I don't think the Texans won their first playoff game because of T.J. Yates. They won it in spite of him. Jerome and our disagreement on Case Keenum moving into the Texans' backup position in front of T.J. Yates is not necessarily based on any belief that I think he's great. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that Jerome just thinks that he's horrible and will never be worth anything, but we're talking about this season, the 2013 season and 14 season, 2013-14 season for the Texans, a season of high expectations, a season where they They added help for Andre Johnson, so that greatly increases people's anticipation of what this offense will be able to do, and that comes back to the quarterback position and how they will fare. But if there was a situation where a guy like a Matt Schaub, who has had an injury-plagued career, was to be out, and we had to go to that backup quarterback, Jerome Solomon says what?
TJ Yates, no question. He's more experience. He's been there. He's been under the fire. He's played some games, and this is a team that it's a championship caliber team.
No, it's not.
Yeah. It's a team that's in the discussion of winning a championship.
That it is.
It's one of the teams. It's not one of the teams where you go, well, there's no way on earth they can win a title.
I agree with that.
And it's a team that they think they can win a championship. More importantly, forget what anybody else thinks. So if they think they can win a championship, the idea that you would want your backup quarterback behind a guy who has a history of injuries, a guy who's quite likely to be injured and miss a game or 2 or 5 this year, would be a guy who's never played. That's just not smart. That's not smart team planning. It's actually worse than last year's planning, where you go into the season with a team that can win a championship, and your third, fourth, and fifth receivers have never caught a ball in the NFL. Not wise, not smart, and it ended up biting them in the butt. You don't want to do that at backup quarterback. That's why it will be a bad decision to jump Case Keenum over TJ Yates, I think, just in general, because we haven't seen TJ regress. We haven't seen him play.
And we haven't seen him improve either.
Well, we haven't seen him play.
Well, we saw. Wait a minute now. We saw him play. Let's go back. And you guys jump in any way you want. We saw him play when he relieved Matt Schaub in the 2011 season, the Texans' first playoff season and playoff winning season. So we saw him play then.
Okay. He wasn't terrible.
He was terrible.
He won
the fundamental basis of our disagreement.
He made a couple of game-winning plays.
He was terrible.
No.
They won in spite of him.
No. You can't be terrible and win games.
Oh, yes, you can.
You can win a game.
Oh, no, you can be terrible and win games.
Cincinnati.
Of course you can.
So was he terrible against Cincinnati?
And man, Trip Dilfer won the Super Bowl. We saw him be terrible.
But he wasn't terrible the whole time. He had a moment or two.
But I would think reasonably speaking, and we'll go to John to give his opinion on this. In reasonable terms, I want to ask you to make my point. But is it reasonable to say that there's a thought process out there that TJ Yates was not very good in that first playoff season for the Texans? Whether you think he was, there are people that maybe think he was great. Those people are idiots. There may be people that just think he was okay. He was good enough to get the job done. We got by, or people like me who say we won in spite of him. And John has a background, terrific football background, coaching and all of that. So, John, I'll get you to jump in, because we're gonna use you four guys as arbitrators, okay? For me and this guy tonight. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm gonna try and stay Switzerland. I'm gonna try and stay neutral on this, because I like both of y'all. But I think there are a couple things to consider.
And remember, I write for HMW.
That's true. That's very true. So I'm gonna go with the TJ Yates suck side. No, that said. Look, he didn't even dress out until the Jacksonville game, where he had to go in. He was wearing pads on a sideline for the very first time when Matt Leinart went down, and he had to go in the game. So I think TJ was just kind of firing as a rookie, and I think he took in what he could, and I think he just tried to go out and make plays. I think if TJ Yates at that point, Matt Schaub suffered a career-ending injury, and TJ Yates had to be the guy going forward, that would have been a very interesting evolution to watch at that particular moment. I think he was at times. I thought the game against Baltimore, I thought he was dreadful. I thought he was dreadful. I thought there were
3
moments.
interceptions.
He was dreadful.
Threw him 6, 3 of them they didn't catch.
Had he been average in that game, they would have won probably.
I agree.
And they go to New England, and who knows what happens. We saw what New England.
We know what
Baltimore was that close to winning that game. If Lee Evans makes that catch. So there's no telling what he could have done had he just in that game. He was bad. But that comeback against Cincinnati where he drives him down the field, there weren't a lot of quarterbacks on 3rd and 15 going scramble. So there were moments. There were moments along those lines. But as it pertains to this season, and I think Jerome brings up a great point, as you go into the season, you start thinking about game planning for the particular year and the type of team you have. I wonder if you were able to put Truth Serum and Rick Smith and Gary Kubiak, that had they had a little bit more room under the salary cap, would they not have looked at a more prominent backup to say, hey, look, if Matt goes down, we got a championship caliber ball club. We got to go with somebody we trust a little bit more. And we all know how hamstrung this team was by the cap. The fact that they had, I mean, the only free agents, I can't even talk about a punter as a free agent, but they went out and got Shane Luckman and they got Ed Reed, a 35-year-old safety.
You can always veteran minimum it too.
You could, but then at that point, are you getting a veteran minimum guy that's better than T.J. Yates at that point?
And that's why I'm thinking T.J. Yates has more value there than we think from the outside.
The best argument I can make, the best conservative argument I can make for T.J. Yates being the Texans' backup quarterback this year in front of Case Keenum is more about roster eligibility and the fact that you could put Case back on the practice squad, because there's not a team that's probably a good point that I thought Stephanie Stradley made. It's not likely that a team's going to go grab a guy like Case who hasn't had a lot of in-game reps in regular season and only knows one system, the Texan system at this point, whereas T.J. Yates wouldn't be practice squad eligible. In my view, what guy do you put on the field, Richard Walker? If you put your GM hat on, do you put on the roster the best football players, or you take Jerome's theory about it? Well, I haven't seen that guy play. And I say, well, we saw the other guy play, and we know he's no good. But we know T.J. Yates no good.
He's going to keep
and I ask you this because
put it back in play.
You used to players that play bad football because you're a Cowboy fan. Go ahead, Richard.
That was a low blow. I got to admit,
what's the flag? Can we get a flag on that?
Angelo, you see that? He was body. He had his intelligent black guy face on. Like, well,
yeah. It's typical of a Texas fan to take a cheap shot.
That's what we do.
You think you can? Okay, but I think to your point, you have to bring the best football players on the field, especially given this kind of to your point earlier. This is a team that at least has the mantra of being a competitive team for a Super Bowl. It'd be different if you're kind of a quasi rebuilding type of team where you're trying to put all the pieces together, you're trying to see where everything fits. They know what they have in Matt Schaub. They're not going to get anything more out of him. As a backup, I think both those guys are completely unknown. You know a little bit more about T.J. Yates. You don't know anything about Case Keenum. So I think the conservative approach, and it's not as if Kubiak
just say the Kubiakian approach.
The Kubiakian approach.
Yeah.
It's not as if Kubiak's ever conservative.
Let's hold it right here. We're gonna pick this up on the other side. Okay. We running long. We got to run to a quick break. Hang in there. I'm Craig Shelton. This is The Cut, and we'll be right back.